Sarah Wiseman.
Hi everybody, my name is Sarah Wiseman and I like numbers. Yeah, you're right, that's a bit of a dodgy intro, isn't it? Actually, if you try it at a party, you'll soon find out that it makes people not want to give you their number. It's not great, it's not great. Now, the thing that I'm especially interested in is how we design interfaces on computers so that people can enter numbers, and also what happens when they enter numbers wrongly. Now, when I say enter numbers wrongly, I don't mean what you do every Wednesday and Saturday when you choose the wrong lottery numbers. There's no interface that I could design that would help you get that right. Well, there's no legal interface that I could design that would help you get that right. No, what I'm talking about is when you know the number but you enter it wrongly. So men in the audience, you might have used this excuse when calling sex chat lines. There's a few examples of this happening. One interesting one in the 90s was when NASA was trying to explore space and learn a bit more about Mars. You know, this awesome planet. Can we colonise it? What's out there? So they worked on this project for years, trying to get this probe out into Mars. And they set it off fine, and everything was going well. It got to Mars, and things started to go a bit strange. So it turned out that half of NASA thought that they were using the pounds per square inch unit for gravitation, and the other half thought we were using the newtons. Now this is a big problem, and it meant that when the probe got to Mars, the Mars space cruiser cruised straight past Mars. So it turns out you don't need to be a rocket scientist to enter numbers correctly. You actually have to have a lot more qualifications. And if rocket scientists are getting it wrong, then we should probably start to check in with the brain surgeons. And that's actually what I'm doing. I'm trying to design interfaces for medical devices so that people don't enter numbers wrongly, and then maybe we can save some lives. And if that happens, then maybe I'll be more like, at the end of my PhD, I'll be more like the types of doctors that are actually useful. So how can I find out more about the way people are entering numbers? Well, one way I do it is to watch people enter numbers. Woohoo! It turns out, though, that people are really reluctant to get involved in scientific research. Like, seriously, I've tried. They're really against it. You know, I tell them all the work that you're doing here is going to help further the cause and the research in the domain of computer interaction. And maybe we're going to design some medical devices and save some lives, I tell them. Isn't that great? Stop looking over my shoulder and trying to read my PIN number, they reply. At which point I usually get chucked out the shop. So real world stuff isn't working for me right now. So what I do instead is I go into the lab and I run experiments in the lab. Now when you think of the lab, you might be thinking about chemicals bubbling away in conical flasks or Frankenstein's monster sat in the corner. That's not what I do. No, what I do is more like The Cube. Have you heard of The Cube? It's an ITV show. Philip Schofield presents it. And what he does, he gets firemen and dinner ladies and then chucks them into a big glass box. Not all at the same time. That's a different show entirely. No, one at a time they go in, and then they try and do these tasks, these really difficult and completely inane tasks. That is exactly what I do with my participants. Exactly. I sit them down and make them do stupid things. The other day, one of the experiments that they used, games they used on the Cube was really like one of my experiments, like exactly the same. The only difference being that when the contestant walked out of the glass box, they just won £20,000, and my participant walked out the room with a fiver in his pocket. Now, experiments aren't the only way we can find out about these sorts of things. There's actually been lots of stuff done before. So, in the 80s, when computers existed, but the internet didn't, so as far as I can tell, they were probably entirely useless, people just sat in front of them waiting for the internet, and so that people could cat pictures. When they got bored like this, they actually started experimenting. And we know a lot about the way people type. We know how quickly they can do it. We know how many errors they're likely to make. One interesting experiment actually showed that you are able to type and copy text perfectly fine whilst listening to and paying attention to nursery rhymes. Quite interesting, but fairly useless. Although, I tell you what, if your boss gets annoyed at you because you're trying to listen to things while you're doing work, I have some academic research that proves that what you're doing won't hinder your work whatsoever, which is great. What I can't provide you with, however, is academic research that justifies the reason why someone your age is still listening to nursery rhymes. Can't do that. In the 60s, people were doing work on how we should enter numbers. So people in Bell Labs were trying to design the iPhone. No, they weren't, that's a lie. They were trying to design how phones should work, so how numbers on a phone should look, numbers on a calculator, numbers on a cash point, everything like that. Now, the 3x3 design that we're all used to isn't a given. No, they were trying out loads of crazy stuff. They were insane. It was the 60s. So what they thought first was that maybe we should lay the numbers out like a rainbow, or maybe we should lay them out like a pyramid. And I kid you not here, okay, if design 1B had won, right, if these researchers had decided that 1B is definitely the right answer, we would all be entering numbers on a crucifix. Seriously, they thought a crucifix might be a brilliant idea. Can you imagine if that had won out? We'd be walking up to the cash machine, ready to type in our PIN, doing that little thing, trying to remember what the pattern is, because no one knows what their PIN number really is. But instead of doing this, you'd be trying to remember by doing this. And actually, before payday, that's sometimes what I am doing when I go to the cash machine. Yeah. But anyway, interfaces aren't actually static like this. Some of them change, and you'll know this if you've got a smartphone. So if you've got an iPhone or an Android, when you're trying to enter a URL for a web address, you'll get a .com button. And when you're trying to enter an email, you get an @ symbol. And that's because these characters are pretty likely in those situations. My phone has actually gone one step further, and it now offers me a button that lets me go to Facebook and find out if my ex-boyfriend's girlfriend is prettier than me. Which is, you know, brilliant personalisation. Well done, Apple. So I've been thinking about how we can adapt numbers to this. And before we can actually do this, we need to know what patterns there are in numbers. Now, we don't know a lot about that because it's flipping boring to most people apart from me. But one thing we do know is about this thing called Benford's law. So this tells you that if you've got a data set and you pick a number at random from it, it's very likely that that number will begin with a 1. And if it doesn't begin with a 1, it's very likely to begin with a 2. And then a 3, and then a 4. You get the picture. So 1's very likely, 9's not very likely. So what's most interesting about this is because it's quite counterintuitive, it can tell you when people have made up data or when it's really got from the real world type data. And so this is quite good when you're trying to check out financial fraud and stuff. One example of this is in the recent Greek financial data. They ran that through Benford's law and found out that it didn't look very predictable at all, which probably indicated that it was slightly fabricated. In the sense that the news of the world was slightly nosy recently. Now, it's not just countries you can run it on, you can also run it on people. No, hang on, not people. You can also run it on MPs. So, with all of this expense claim data we've got, you can run it through Benford's law, and you find out who's got the most realistic looking data. So, Harriet Harman, she looks good. All of the Benford law stuff, it comes out right, it comes out right. Now, our former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Alistair Darling, you run his stuff through it, and it doesn't look so good. You actually get a whole load of 3s and 4s, which really aren't predictable and aren't explainable at all. I'm just going to leave that out there so you're all thinking about it. I'll just leave it at that. Well, I won't leave it at that. An entire country was brought up on this. But, you know, whatever, I'll leave it at that. So, being interested in medicine and medical devices, I decided to look at what numbers were being used in hospitals. And like Benford's law, I found out there was a pattern. There were loads of zeros happening. Loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of freaking zeros being used. And then a few 1s and 2s and 5s being thrown into the mix. So, you know, if you've ever wondered about what numbers people are typing on casualty, then you're a freaking loser. But also, we could probably be Facebook friends afterwards. So how can we think about this? Imagine that the numbers are... Imagine that they're school children waiting to be picked for a sports team at PE. So you've got number 4 waiting there. I've been trying really hard this year. I've been doing some good work. I'm a really good square number, and I've been doing a lot of work with rectangles. I'm definitely going to get picked. I'm definitely going to get picked. And the number gets chosen. 1. Oh, okay, 1. No, 1 is fine. I like 1. 1 is good. Okay, we'll send 1 out there. That's okay. I'm sure I'm going to get picked soon. 0. 0. Okay, I wouldn't have seen that one coming, but okay, I'm sure I'll get picked in a minute. It's going to be fine. 0. 0? Again? Is zero even a number? I'm sure I'm going to get picked. It's going to be fine. It'll be fine. 0. Oh, come on. You are... Zero's only been a number for 2,000 years. This isn't fair. I've been here for much longer than that. Jeez. This is getting ridiculous. That's the end of number, thanks. What? No, come on. You're not going to pick me... This is crap. This is crap. This happens every time I'm here in the medical domain. Every flipping time. You know what? No, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of this. I'm out. I'm going to take 3 and we're going to go and help Alistair Darling with his expense claims. Thank you very much.
Has just reminded me of politics. Oh, God!